Welcome guys to my Baki Miyamoto Musashi arc review, or Baki Dou Part 1 arc review, whatever you want to call it. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and join the Discord if you're a fan of Baki, and if you want to talk more about Baki, join the Discord, as you know, like-minded Baki fans in there to talk about its greatness. Now, onto the review. So this arc made up the whole of pretty much Baki Dou, or the Part 1 of Baki Dou, which went from chapter 1 to chapter 198. And concluded that manga until the next manga came out, Baki Dou 2018, which is currently still in production. The basis of the arc was pretty much after the big battle between Yujiro and Baki at the end of the previous manga series, Hanma Baki, where many of the fighters, including Baki, were bored with life, and that's where it picks up from there with the pretty much cloning or revival of the world famous swordsman from the feudal era Japan, Miyamoto Musashi, to come in and wreck everyone. So it starts off with showing all the characters being bored, and starts off with Baki still training, because even though Yujiro considered him an equal at the end of the last arc, Baki doesn't really, and still takes it as an L, and then pretty much continues his champion in the underground fighting arena, stomping anyone to challenge him, with him stomping a world-renowned UFC fighter. And this is where we get the introduction to the cloning of the mummy of Miyamoto, with the mummy being found to be fully intact, and then all these scientists going into the cloning process or wanting to clone him. The main cloning aspect of it, and you know, all the scientists talking, was definitely a pretty boring part and was nowhere near the greatest thing that we've had in Baki. And it was kind of probably one of the worst parts, and is this kind of draining to read because there was a lot of it in the early parts. Many of the other Baki fighters are doing some training as well after watching the Baki vs Yujiro fight, to see how truly weak they are compared to them, and that they need to, and on their own wants to get to that level, so they need to do their own training. But this is what led to everyone's boredom, as since that fight there has been no real crazy fights going on, or no real challenge for everyone to go and face. And the idea of boredom is portrayed with the idea of everyone yawning, with, you know, not knowing what to really do, and this being lost pretty much. It's mentioned that Hanayama knows his limits, so he's not training to the same level of many of the other characters are. Baki is training harder than ever, same old training that he did in the rest or earlier parts of the story. Jack is aiming to be even taller, lengthening his limbs even more. Everyone is bored and no one is fighting, so it's just a boring time at this point. Hanayama wants to quench his boredom, so he wants to fight Yujiro, and they have met. We get some dialogue that both Yujiro and Hanamana were two people who were born to be called strong, or once they were born, they were always strong since birth, getting some Yujiro backstory, getting some Hanayama backstory, just showing that these two monsters were born with strength. Yujiro smiling with joy after being punched by Hanayama. Yujiro is somewhat trolling him and letting him attack without fighting back, and then Yujiro gets serious and pretty much wrecks him, which sends him flying through like a building or so, and Hanayama his boredom is quenched for now, and he was just pretty much wrecked by Yujiro here. During the same time of the Yujiro vs Hanayama fight, Miyamoto awakens, and he's pretty much asking questions about his, you know, what's going on, because, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years later he's been awoken in a clone. He has all his memories, has his same skills, pretty much the real Miyamoto coming back to life in this era. He agrees to fight, as you know, our boy is always there asking people to fight. He's shocked by how much the world has changed with buildings everywhere. He meets Japan's current best swordsman and scares him, and even states that even without a sword he can cut people, which was just insane to think about at this early part of the story. He also has a sense of humor when asking people if they want to get cut, and then, you know, it's like, oh no, I'm just joking, you know, just fucking baiting people, which is great to see. Miyamoto was pretty much the protagonist of this whole 190 chapters, which was great to see, and probably one of the best arcs we've had in Baki as a whole, in my opinion, if you could just get past the insanity of everything Baki in the later parts. Miyamoto was also shown around this time breaking 2 legendary swords, and asks that these aren't real legendary swords, that aren't the real swords that he's used to using. This destroys him like secret treasure swords, this breaks him in half with absolute ease. Baki was able to sense Miyamoto and was able to pretty much be aware of the overwhelming power within him, and was speed blitzed by Miyamoto shortly after that. This is once they have been met. They begin to fight with Baki attacking him with a kick, but that kick is stopped as Miyamoto grabs Baki and uses him somewhat like a sword to slam him into the ground, in turn knocking Baki out cold, giving Miyamoto the win. And then Baki wakes up like 30 minutes later in pretty much a bed next to where the fight happened. When Baki woke up, he wanted to ask for a rematch, but Miyamoto said Baki was out for 30 minutes, and he asked, how many times do you think I could have killed you if this was like a real to the death battle or something along those lines? And this pretty much shocks Baki immensely to think about, like, oh yeah, shit, I've been defeated. You can't just come back and ask for a rematch after the possibility of me being killed. He was just nice and didn't kill me. Then pretty much Baki still wants the rematch, attacks and lands a jab which knocks Miyamoto to his knees for 10 seconds, and then he says the same thing along the lines like, oh, I could have killed you 2 times with those 2 seconds, or within those 10 seconds, however long it was. This is what causes Miyamoto to get somewhat serious. They both charged, but Miyamoto was able to grab Baki's jab this time and attack multiple times with his hand, which pretty much is able to do the same cutting thing that a regular sword was, as his hand by itself is pretty much a sword. But Baki was able to counter attack, but Miyamoto leaves to explore the world, while Baki falls to the ground, pretty much losing or implying that he lost the battle again. Miyamoto kinda got bored, or this was over the fight, was aware that he won, and pretty much wanted to see the rest of the world, see if they had any other strong people like Baki around there. So with the arc just starting, Baki has been defeated 2 times by Miyamoto, but as we know, Baki doesn't get serious unless it's an official match or if it's against pretty much Yujiro. All the other Baki fighters see Miyamoto on the news fucking up the police, so he pretty much walking around and goes to a restricted area. The police tell him to get out. He's like, yeah, he doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about, and starts pretty much slaying players like an absolute mad lad. The next major fight to happen during this arc is Dopporochi and Miyamoto meeting, and this is where Miyamoto makes fun of Dopporochi's martial art, in turn starting to fight with Miyamoto getting the first direct blow after stopping a head part from Dopporochi, showing that he has insane reflexes and probably one of the fastest characters we've seen so far in the series. He's also able to find the real sword and completely wrecks Dopporochi. He could have cut in half if he wanted to, but chose to keep him alive, so if he wanted to, Dopporochi would be dead right here and then. This is where we see Retsu. As we know, during the earlier arcs of Baki, he was going down the path of boxing, and this is where we see him becoming the boxing world champion. This is where he ended his career as a boxer. He doesn't get defeated, just becomes the world champion and goes like, yep, I'm the best at boxing now, and just retires there and then. Gotta love the Chad Retsu there and then. The next major fight is where Retsu challenges Miyamoto and was able to land an attack on him and sent him to the ground. This is pretty much an official battle where weapons are allowed to be held between them, so both of them can use a variety of weapons to fight as well, which is an interesting thing. We haven't really seen that in like official battles in Baki so far. In preparation for the fight, Kayakaku has arrived to provide assistance to Retsu. Retsu's weapon pretty much was a bunch of knives and other various weapons inside his jacket, and he's also worked on his Chinese Kempo and various other techniques thanks to the help of Kayakaku. Retsu was able to land a few attacks, in turn making Miyamoto fall to the ground with blood everywhere. Retsu also pulls out nunchucks and various other weapons to attack Miyamoto. Retsu was able to knock him down a few more times after that, and then this is where Miyamoto could have killed him, but did the same blade trick that he did on Dopporochi, just letting him live, but he could have sealed the deal and killed him there. But instead of pretty much ending the battle there, Miyamoto ended up sealing Retsu's movement with various other techniques or various other like strings and stuff. Miyamoto was able to defeat Sashiri, the technique that Kayakaku uses against Yujiro to, you know, be like a leaf, but it was able to stop the sword attack Miyamoto used on Retsu from instant killing him. But Miyamoto was able to learn that in today's world, one's fist can be as strong and stronger than a sword, and this is where Retsu is dead from the sword attack, and our boy Retsu is now dead in Baki. That's a big rip to Retsu. One of the better fights we've had in the series, him versus Miyamoto, but this is a shame how he had to go out, but it is showing that he was on the brink of death with how reckless he was, going to fight Pickle in like how many arcs ago it was, and then trying to become the boxing champion with missing a leg, and then after becoming that, trying to face Miyamoto straight away, showing that all these years of Chinese Kempo, the master Kaki left to think that all this time could have been wasted because his most used or most mastered technique was useless against Miyamoto. Is this showing how great and how interesting this fight was? Shortly after the battle, Miyamoto is talking to everyone or talking to people about the fight, and he mentioned that Retsu would be on the same level of Sasaki Kojo during the time when they were battling in his era. He also mentioned that Sasaki Kojo was nothing special for him, and it was more like a regular battle for him, just nothing extreme or life-threatening, showing that Retsu Yujiro was pretty much nothing compared to Miyamoto during this fight. After that, the next main plot point is how Motobi wants to protect the current generation of fighters and wants to pretty much protect Baki, protect everyone. This is where it kind of triggers Baki, but Motobi is able to outplay Baki with his various other pretty much training, as all his life he's been training with various weapons from the same era that Miyamoto's from, and he feels that this is his life destiny to pretty much save everyone and defeat Miyamoto. This is where we see Miyamoto versus the current Japanese Kendo champion, and this is where Miyamoto gets an instant victory, just destroying him with absolute ease. This is where we get more of Kaku question himself, with Sasuru being countered during the Retsu fight, which ended in Retsu's death, and he's somewhat blaming himself for this, showing that all his 100 years of Chinese Kempo was not good enough to counter someone of the likes of Miyamoto. Goki also has a fight with Miyamoto, but gets defeated with relative ease without really taking any damage on Miyamoto's side. This is where Motobi told Yujiro, like he did against Baki, that Miyamoto is too much for him, and says that he'll protect him, much like what he said to Baki, and then hits legs with a smoke bomb after that, because as we know would enrage Yujiro immensely, and Yujiro pretty much just goes for the kill on Motobi there and then. This is where Yujiro decides to meet Miyamoto. Miyamoto wasn't able to cut him like the others and called his body something like a suit of armor. So far Yujiro is dominating the fight. Miyamoto lost the grip of his sword for the first time in his life and was shocked how this was able to happen, and saw the pretty much overwhelming strength of Yujiro. But near the end of the fight, where pretty much Miyamoto got extremely serious and was going for the kill on Yujiro, Motobi interfered in the fight and takes the blow that was meant for Yujiro. Yujiro starts going fucking crazy and starts fucking Motobi up, even though he's already pretty much knocked out from the blow or from the attack from Miyamoto. They decide to call the fight a draw, and they go to a bar and decide to drink together. This is Yujiro and Miyamoto, while Motobi is in bed pretty much injured. Jack is here and wants to meet Miyamoto, but has to fight Motobi first. As we know, Motobi is still going down the path of wanting to protect everyone, and that includes Jack Hammer saying that he's not going to let him fight Miyamoto. You have to fight him first and defeat Motobi first. Motobi is using all his weapons and cutting Jack in various places and pretty much wrecking him. Jack gets pretty much wrecked and kind of gets very nervous and very angry. He decides to bite Motobi, but ends up biting like a pretty much army jacket thing that has titanium in it, and in turn this pretty much breaks or destroys all Jack's teeth again, so we see blood going everywhere, Jack's teeth going everywhere after him trying to bite his jacket, and then Motobi wins by tying Jack Hanma up. So Jack was absolutely destroyed by Motobi in this fight. As we know, Motobi, being preparing for this, has weapons everywhere and will do anything to just get to fight Miyamoto. The good boy Pickle has returned, with him fighting a giant alligator. Miyamoto ends up cutting a TV that was showing Pickle fighting the alligator, showing that this was some type of a monster, and this slices the TV thinking that was a real Pickle. This is what leads Miyamoto wanting to go see Pickle. Once they meet, Pickle tries to eat Miyamoto but fails to do so, and while Miyamoto dodges the pretty much attack, he fails to pretty much attack or cut his bones or do any real damage with his sword, similar to what happened to Yujiro when he tried attacking him, and compares Pickle's pretty much durability or muscle/skin durability to Pickle's. Or I mean, he compares Pickle to Yujiro, saying they have very similar attributes when it comes to that. Pickle gets the same vibe from Miyamoto of a small fast dinosaur he fought in the past, and then later on compares him to an exploding volcano, which was pretty much an extremely hard thing that Pickle would run away from. We get shown that Baki and Yujiro actually had a talk to each other about Miyamoto. Yujiro said he rattled on and on without even a thought, and that he didn't really care about fighting Yujiro in that instant, which kinda hurt Yujiro's pride a little bit. But it was also good to see Baki and Yujiro actually having somewhat of a normal talk, and showing that the big fight they had actually did make a difference with their relationship they have. During this time as well, Miyamoto is able to find or get his original sword back from back in his prime when he was actually alive. This is where the setup between Pickle and Miyamoto's fight is happening, with it being an official fight with weapons allowed, somewhat like how Retsu Piku and Miyamoto's fight went with weapons being allowed. This is where Gaia meets Miyamoto. As we know, Gaia is the apprentice of Motobe, and Gaia pretty much wants to meet with Miyamoto and see what he's all about, and gets destroyed even while using various other weapons. This can't even touch Miyamoto and gets absolutely destroyed, and just walks away like Miyamoto just pretty much clowns on him, this absolutely bodied. This very sad to see, honestly. The Pickle versus Miyamoto fight is on, and Pickle so far is getting wrecked. He's getting cut everywhere, blood is going everywhere, but he's able to bite and take somewhat of Miyamoto's shoulder away with his bite. This is where Pickle changed his view of Miyamoto to something like a pretty much mud with no meat, and doesn't want to eat him anymore, showing that Miyamoto is too strong for Pickle, and Pickle doesn't have the intellect or pretty much power or ability to defeat or eat Miyamoto. And this is where he runs out the door, pretty much hits legs, just scared shitless of Miyamoto, and finds Motobe at the door, which pretty much saves him, or it's shown that Motobe is here to save everyone from Musashi. Motobe walks in the arena and attacks, so the fight is on. Motobe is a super chat and was able to choke out Miyamoto after back and forth various techniques, using all these various weapons to attack Miyamoto, damaging his jaw, damaging Miyamoto everywhere, and Motobe was able to end the fight while choking him out and pretty much defeating Miyamoto, but he doesn't end up killing him and decides to let him live, which is kind of strange to think about, going over how he wants to save everyone, but once he actually defeats him, he doesn't kill Miyamoto, which is just, you know, mate, what are you doing, bro? What are you doing? But, you know, Motobe, absolute chat, was able to defeat Miyamoto with his insane prep and weapons and everything that went into that. But while saying that, it's also good to take that he took immense damage, his broken bones everywhere, and he was pretty much destroyed and wouldn't be able to fight on if he wasn't able to choke him out there. And this is where we get like 20 or so chapters of Miyamoto versus the police again, absolutely just destroying all the police force. No one can handle him and just absolutely destroying him. And then while that is happening, we get a cool funny moment of, as we know, there's a new US president during this time in Baki, which is President Trump, and this is where we see him forming an alliance with Yujiro. You get to see him and Hillary meeting Yujiro and just, you know, forming the alliance again with Yujiro. As you know, America forms an alliance with Yujiro every new president or every new year whenever it takes place. And this is where Miyamoto is shown to be too powerful for the police, and this is where the police commissioner goes to Hanayama to ask him for help, ask for the Yakuza's help and the strength of Hanayama to pretty much put down Miyamoto. Shortly after this is where the fight happens between Hanayama and Miyamoto. Hanayama is wrecking Miyamoto for the most part, being able to land various full power punches to his face, which damages Miyamoto immensely. But during this as well, Miyamoto is able to cut him with his sword multiple times, and Hanayama is able to tank a lot of these attacks. And this is where Miyamoto compares him to Pickle and Yujiro as well, but this is somewhat different. Not that his muscles are extremely strong, that his bones are strong, and that Miyamoto is able to cut his flesh, but he's not able to cut his bones anywhere near the amount of any other human, and he's never seen someone with this type of strong bone structure. And this is where we have a raw power versus raw power of Hanayama, showing that he has more raw power and stronger drip strength than Miyamoto. This is where we see that Baki has arrived to help Hanayama. Hanayama has been cut everywhere and like his bodily organs about to fall out. Baki helps him so he can continue fight. Hanayama continues the fight, but ends up losing. Miyamoto wasn't fully able to cut him though, such as the bone or anything along those lines. Miyamoto went to finish Hanayama in turn killing him, but Baki stopped him and said, "If you draw that sword, I will fucking murder you." And this was probably the most hype moment. It gave me chills while reading, probably one of the best moments we've had in the whole series thus far of Baki. You know, hundreds and hundreds of chapters, this was one of the most hype moments. So like extremely serious, Baki saying that he will kill Miyamoto if he draws that sword on Hanayama. This is also where we get to see Baki talking some shit to Miyamoto as well, and the setup for the final battle of Baki versus Miyamoto. During the setup, Miyamoto finds Pickle in the sewers, and then they pretty much share like some dinosaur meat or some meat together. Pickle's being all friendly, they're being friendly, they're all talking about how they're being pretty much revived into this new world that they do not know. Pickle, as we know, doesn't talk. Just listening to him, they have a cool little bonding moment together. But this is also where Miyamoto mentioned that Pickle is above Hanayama when it comes to strength or something along those lines, which is something interesting to note. This is where we go back to the fight, or the setup for the final fight of Baki vs Miyamoto. We see that Oliver is watching the fight, shocked by Miyamoto's aura, and shows some fear by just seeing his aura from the seat. And as they're going back and forth, Baki's kind of wrecking at first, getting wrecked by him. It's pretty much equal fight so far. The same old lady who helped resurrect Miyamoto jumped in and pretty much took Miyamoto's soul or life away, as she had given it to him with the help of the scientists and everything like that. And Miyamoto is pretty much dead, and that's the end of the arc. The way the arc ended, if anything, it was extremely disappointing, but it was kind of the only way they could really do it to pretty much keep intact Miyamoto's strength, showing that Yujiro versus Miyamoto was stated to be a draw. Baki defeated Miyamoto once but was defeated twice, and then in the final fight you could say it was a draw as well. And then we get pretty much hints at the next arc, which is the sumo arc, where we see the sumo dude Sukune mentioned, with him turning coal into diamond, similar to what Yujiro did during the earlier parts of the Baki arcs. So that is my Baki Dou part 1 or Miyamoto arc review. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to subscribe, join the Discord, follow my Twitter, all that good shit. Let me know how I can improve these videos as well. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, very cool, very cool. Have a nice day, and that's it guys. Peace.